The Humiliated Father II, Part 2 of 4. Is this it here? The humiliation of the Father that is being shown to us, in this figure that is not simply impulsive or not simply disparaged, I will come back to this and show you it, but that goes right up to the most extreme form of derision, a derision that even confines it to the abject. Is this what we can expect from an author professing to be Catholic and aiming to revive, to reincarnate before us traditional values? Isn't it a bit strange that there wasn't more of a scandalous outcry about a play which, when it came out on its own 3 or 4 years after The Hostage, made claim to retain, to captivate our attention with this episode, which I find to have a kind of sordidness that has Balzacian echoes, that relates only to the most extreme, to a paroxysm, also to an exceeding here of all the limits? I don't know if I need to ask those who haven't read Hard Bread since last time to raise their hands. I don't think that if I just show you the way, you will all rush along it as quickly as possible. I feel obliged briefly to summarise, to remind you of what it's about. Hard Bread starts with a dialogue between two women. Definitely more than 20 years have passed since Céline's death, the baptism day of the son that she gave to Toussaint Turelleux. This man, who already at this period wasn't very youthful, has become a sinister enough old man. We don't see him, he is hidden in the wings, but what we see is these two women, of which one, Sichel, is his mistress, and the other, Lumière, the mistress of his son. The latter is returning from a land that has been in the news a bit since, Algeria, where she has left Louis de Couffontaine, for he is called Louis, of course, in honour of the restored sovereign. So as not to miss out on the opportunity to slip a little whimsy in here, a little remark of which I don't know if there is anyone here who has already mentioned it. The origin of the word Louis is Ludovicus, Ludovic, Lodovic, Clodovic the Merovingian. And this is none other, when you write it down you see it better, than Clovis without the C, which makes Clovis the first Louis. It could be asked whether everything would have been different if Louis XIV had known that he was Louis XV. Perhaps his reign would have been in a different style and ad infinitum. Anyway, from this whimsy aimed at cheering you up, let's move on. Louis de Couffontaine is still, at least as far as we know, in the territory of Algeria. And Lumière, the person who comes back to the house of Toussaint, his father, comes to reclaim some money that she has loaned. It's this story that made the two authors of books of famous pastiches, Pastiche and Claudel, marvel so beautifully. It's this scene of reclaiming from old Toussaint that has been used as the theme of the famous In the Manner of. It is in relation to this that, for the benefit of later generations, is discussed this famous rejoinder, so apt, truer than Claudel himself, attributed to the parodied character, a claim being made for him to return this sum, for which he was prepared to ruin a poor woman. There are no small savings, a saying meaning something like, look after the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves. The savings it concerns, these are not at all the savings of the girl who has come to claim them from Toussaint Turelleux. They are nothing less than the fruit of the sacrifices of Polish émigrés. The sum of 10,000 francs, it's even more than 10,000 francs, that has been loaned by the young woman, of whom you will see in what follows what role and what function it is apt to give her. This is the object of her request. Lumière comes to reclaim from old Toussaint, not that it was to old Toussaint that she surrendered the sum or made the loan, but to his son. The son is now insolvent, not only to the sum of these 10,000 francs, but to the sum of another 10,000 francs. It is a question of obtaining from the father the sum of 20,000 francs in the middle of the last century, meaning at a time when a franc was a franc, and that was not something to be earned in an instant, believe you me. The young woman who is there encounters another, Sichel. Sichel is the official mistress of old Toussaint, and the official mistress of old Toussaint is not without a few wounds to complain about. It's a position posed with some coarseness, but the person who occupies it fits the bill. In short, very quickly, what it boils down to between these two women is to know how to destroy the old man, to have his skin. It's not about getting anything else before destroying him. It seems that the question will be resolved even more quickly, which is to say, in short, that the style is absolutely not one of tenderness, nor one of high idealism. These two women, each in their own way, as you will see, I will come back to it, can very well be labelled as ideal types. For us, the audience, they don't fail to create the image of a particular form of seduction. It is necessary that I indicate to you every calculation and extreme calculation that is weaved into the position of these two women. In the face of greed, this greed that nothing is equal to other than its own disorder, which is exceeded only by its iniquity, as is expressed in the text by said Sichel speaking of old Tireleur. The Polish character Lumière, pronounced Lumière, as Claudel expressly tells us that her name must be pronounced, is prepared to go, in order to get back what she considers to be a property right, a sacred law for which she is responsible, that she has alienated but that she absolutely must restore to those with whom she feels fealty and unique allegiance, all the émigrés, all the martyrs, the dead even of this eminently impassioned, passionate, impassioning cause that is the cause created by a divided Poland, a partitioned Poland. The young woman has decided to go as far as one can go, right up to offering of yielding to what she knows to be the desire of old Tireleur. Old Tireleur, she knows in advance what to expect of him. It is enough for a woman to be his son's woman for her to be sure already that she is not, far from it, for him a forbidden object. We find again here another characteristic which has only been found very recently to have been inserted into what I would call the common theme of certain functions of the father. The other one, the partner in the dialogue, Sichel, I named her just now, sharp customer, is not ignorant of these components of the situation. Here is something new as well. I mean something that, in the playing out of this particular round that we call the Oedipus complex, is added by Claudel. Sichel is not the mother, take note of it. The mother is dead, out of the game. And no doubt this setup in the Claudelian drama is something that perhaps here necessarily tends to promote, to bring to the surface elements that are likely to interest us in this trail, in this topology, in this fundamental dramaturgy, just as something that there is in common in the same epoch relays itself from one creature to another, a reflective thought to a creative thought. She is not the mother, not even the father's wife. This is the object of a tyrannical, ambiguous desire. It is sufficiently highlighted by Sichel that if there is something that binds the father to her, it is something that is a desire that is close to being a desire to destroy her, given that he virtually makes her his slave, and that he is capable of speaking thus about the feeling he has for her, to have picked it up in essence from some charm that came from her talent as a piano player, and from a little finger that tapped a note on the keyboard so well. The piano, that precisely since she has been keeping the accounts of old Toussaint, she has not been able to open. Hence, this Sichel has her idea. This idea, we will see it blossom in the form of the sudden arrival of the one named Louis de Coutfontaine, at the very moment when the drama will come together. For this arrival, that does not fail to provoke a true gut-wrenching, a true flexing of abject fear on the part of the old father, Is him it who he comes? He cries out suddenly, dropping the beautiful language with which a minute earlier he has just used to describe the poetic feelings that unite him with Sichel, with the young woman I've just talked about. Is him it who he comes? He does in fact come, and he comes brought by an underhand operation, by a little warning letter from said Sichel. He comes centre stage, and the play culminates in a particular squared round, it could be said, if the character of the father of Sichel is not added here, old Ali Habenichts, nicht habe nicht, who has nothing. It's a play on words, the old usury who is a kind of double of Toussaint Turelleux, who is the one through whom he has been perpetrating this complicated operation that consists of taking back from his own son, piece by piece and morsel by morsel, the birthright of the Couffontaines that Louis has made the mistake of claiming from him with a heritage stamped document since his coming of age. You see how everything links in. It's not for nothing that I have evoked the Balzacian theme. The circulation, the processing, the conflict in relation to money, doubling the emotional rivalry. Old Toussaint Turelleux sees in his son this precise something on which the Freudian experience has focused our attention. This other self, this repetition of himself, this reborn figure of himself in which he cannot but see a rival. And when in one moment his son tenderly attempts to say to him, "Am I not a true Turelleux?" he rudely replies, "Yes, no doubt, but there is already one, that's enough. As far as being Turelleux, I am more than enough to fulfill the role." Another theme in which we can encounter this thing that has been introduced by the Freudian discovery. Also, that's not all here, and I will say what it culminates in. After a dialogue in which it takes Lumière, Louis de Couffontaine's mistress, to whip him into shape with all the injuries directed at his self-respect, at his narcissistic virility, as we say, by revealing to the son the propositions of which she is the object made by the father, of this father who, by his ducking and weaving, wants to push him right to the edge of bankruptcy, which is where he finds himself when the play begins, and who is not only going to wrench, ravir, his land away from him, which he is going to buy off him at a knockdown price via his usury intermediaries, but is also going to ravish, ravir, away his wife. In short, Lumière arms Louis de Couffontaine against his father. And we are present at the scene of this murder, so well prepared by the stimulus from the woman herself, who is shown here to be not only the temptress but also the one who schemes, who contrives the whole crime through which Louis de Couffontaine's accession to the function of the father is going to happen. And this murder that we see take place on stage, another murder of the father scene, we are going to see it take place in the following way, with the two women having collaborated. For as Lumière says somewhere, it's Sichel who gave me the idea.